Warning. The following podcast features views and opinions that are likely to trigger the extreme fanboys and fangirls who disagree with them. Listener discretion is advised.
The saga is coming to an end, but the story is going to live forever. Welcome to a special edition of Hot Takes with Billy Biz. I'm joined today by Mr. Star Wars. Can I call you Mr. Star Wars? Just like we call Shawn Michaels Mr. WrestleMania?
You can, because I appreciate it. I think there's other better minds out there, but, I'm a Shawn Michaels fan, and so I get it.
Okay, well, I'll call you the Heartbreak Knapzok,
There you go.
Mr. Ken Napzok from the ForceCenter podcast.
Happy to be here, my friend, Billy Patterson.
So we did this with the Marvel movies. I did this with Mrs. Business, where we went through all 29 million movies, one by one.
lot, yeah.
It was a 4-hour ordeal. But I think it really helps to kind of go through every movie in a franchise and talk about them and get the whole big picture. So today, on the eve of Rise of Skywalker, about to hit theaters soon, we're going to go back and we're going to look at every theatrically released Star Wars movie. And then I'm going to do the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Yeah. I'm going to try to rank the Star Wars movies. Oh boy. My personal ranking. Let me put that out there, by the way. This is my personal ranking, your personal ranking.
Yeah, and so this question gets asked a lot, and I try to, and this is how much I love you and respect you. I normally don't do this. I don't. It's hard to. I'll joke. Like I have one of my rankings on here is I say it a lot. It's my blank favorite Star Wars film because it's kind of done to needle.
The Goldbergs, 1980 something.
Yeah,
because you just don't want to commit.
You'll see later on. But like, I was just part of a ranking show where I didn't have to rank it. We didn't have to rank it, but Collider put out a fan list.
I saw that. Yeah.
And the reason they did it is last year they did the top 10 heroes of Star Wars, and that was an internal one.
Sure.
And I did not participate in it as even voting or on the show, but they got a lot of heat, as happens on the internet, where people are just like tearing them down, and everyone from editors who Christian Ruvacabla, who put hours into it, just everyone was upset, like at the fans, like come on, it's a silly little list of heroes, and so this year they were like, fine, you do it, you rank it, and at the time of this recording, I don't know if it ends our careers or not, but it's your list. But even going through that, I argued with some of them, like, how could this be here? But then I look at my list when you're actually starting to put it to numbers, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I put it there. Well, interesting.
Well, I think one of the things that's tough about that is you put out these lists, or sometimes these things get out, and there's not really context. It's just, here it is. This is the list. And you're like, what? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single movie. We're going to talk a little bit about each movie, what that movie, your thoughts, your feelings on that movie, my thoughts, my feelings, how we feel about that movie, so that at the very end, when we do our rankings, you kind of know where we're coming from. That doesn't mean you have to agree. This is not definitive. This is just, if you ever wanted to know what Billy Biz and Ken Napzok Star Wars rankings are, here they are. We are going to go in chronological order. I don't know. It's not. I was going to say chronological, but it's
chronological. Yeah, great. That's a great term.
We're going to go in chronological order here.
Yeah.
Just because I think it'll be kind of a pyramid effect if we start with the originals. But let's kick it off with the very beginning of the story, which is 1999's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I think that when you talk about nostalgia goggles, and I was saying this to you off air, it is seen as something that is bad and something you must remove, something you must take not into effect. I'm going to be real with you. I'm not a film critic. Film to me and entertainment to me is about emotions. It's about feelings. And how does this Star Wars movie make me feel? And Episode 1, probably more than a lot of the other Star Wars movies, ties me right into 1999. I really like most of Phantom Menace.
Right, yeah. I do too, and I do too now. My journey from being 22 in the theater and going, that ain't my Star Wars, to now going, man, I really love a lot of what's there. I really love the themes. I love the novel. Terry Brooks really put some interesting things that didn't make the movie. The first pod race with Anakin helping the Tusken Raiders. So now just the entire story means a lot more to me. And then there's, things that I was infuriated about in 1999. Just I don't have the fire for that anymore.
Right.
And even that goes even before I started talking about Star Wars professionally. The 2012-ish era was about 2012 when, Red Letter Media did their thing.
Sure.
And I was a fan of them, not so much a fan of them now, but I still like a lot of that review and consider some of it really accurate. But now I have kind of it's not as insightful of a review as you thought, or an insightful as a deconstruction as you thought, number one. And number two, so what?
Sure. Sure, yeah.
Because it's Star Wars, and hot damn if I don't love this stuff. And so Phantom Menace, juicy film with some great things in it.
I think the set pieces in Phantom Menace, I think to me, even though you're going to get some wild things later on, in especially like Attack of the Clones, but I think for me, Phantom Menace was just like even if you're just like, I am not on board with the story they're telling me, like, how can you deny that the pod race was amazing? How can you deny that lightsaber battle is amazing? Like, I feel like even if you're just not into that movie, there's enough there to keep you at least like entertained.
Yeah, I think it's good and entertains. I love the prequel generation. I wouldn't necessarily put you in that because I'd say you're the special edition generation.
I'm special.
You're special. You're special. Pal, Jedi Council cohort, Andres Cabrera, definitely prequel era. I think he's like 7 or 8. My girlfriend, prequel era. Darth Maul, her favorite character, one of her favorite characters in Star Wars because that's what she saw. So it entertains on that level, but then it rewards you if you want it to reward you. And I look at the character of Padme now for me. So this is for me and my relationship with the character of Padme, where I've always liked the character. I was a fan of Natalie Portman too, and I liked her work, and it was great. But I just... Now I look at those scenes, particularly in Phantom Menace, and without a doubt the character drops off a little bit for various reasons later on in the films. But in Phantom Menace, that queen, the 14-year-old queen that will do anything to defend her people, that will go to the front lines to defend her people, elected, takes that position, and then has that moment that I wrote about in my book that... she defies Palpatine, and even though he's always in control and he's always the Phantom Menace and he's going to adjust on the fly when his plan doesn't necessarily go the right way, there's that brief second where she's like, this is your arena, Senator. I'm going back to my people, where you're like, hot damn, you can't put Padme in a box.
Nope.
You can't. And so that means more to me now than it ever would have or could have in 1999.
And I love that. I feel like Phantom Menace is the only movie that shows, people are like, God, all the things that must have had to have happened for Palpatine's thing to work. It's like, no, this shows you, like, sometimes even he was just like, all right, well, that was an unexpected move, but let's move around here.
And it's that's confirmed that moment, because again, I wrote about it, and it's very easy to say. McDiarmid plays it. There's a split second of shock.
Right.
And then immediately he's like, oh, yeah, go back. Because it easily turns to his favor in his mind. And so you could say he was lying the whole time. He knew she was going to do that, whatever. And you might be right. However, I think they lean into it in the Clone Wars series, where the Mina Bonteri arc, there is an actual moment where Palpatine's in his office looking out the window, just kind of like, Padme did it again.
Yep.
She did it again. And that's how powerful the character is. So that's there if you want it.
It's also the only appearance of what I am now going on record as saying is my all-time favorite Star Wars character, Qui-Gon Jinn.
You love yourself some Qui-Gon.
I love Qui-Gon, man.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's a good choice.
Qui-Gon is ultimately what I feel like balance is in the Force. It's feeling the moment, not being tied to anything, knowing that there's darkness, knowing that there's light, and knowing that extremes of either are bad. And I love Qui-Gon Jinn so much. Liam Neeson just delivers.
Really good.
He's
really
so good.
Yeah.
I mean, he could read the phone book.
Yeah,
and it's good. But also, this movie, every time I watch it, I just can't divorce myself of the excitement of 1990, like the spring of 99. Like I will always feel it's the same thing when I watch the first Marvel Avengers movie. Like even though I've seen 500 other movies with 500 other heroes joining them, there's still something that excites me about the fact, even though I've seen it a million times, like, wow, they're all together for the first time. I didn't think this was possible. That feeling will never get shaken. Same with Phantom Menace. Every time I watch it now, I still feel the anticipation of that spring.
That's great, yeah.
So I on nostalgia, but also the meteor bit. Like you said, if you want to see it, it's definitely there.
Yeah.
The meteor bits.
And you don't have to, for all of these, that will probably come up a lot. You don't have to.
Right.
And if you don't like it, you don't like it. Same with any one of these movies. Any one of them, but it's there.
Let's move on to 2002's Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Boy, what a roller coaster relationship I've had with this movie. As I said on one of your shows, I walked out and I was like, this is the best Star Wars movie ever made. I don't think I still feel that way. I think Attack of the Clones to me is incredibly disappointing because it's not a total failure. If it was if it was an abject nothing in this movie works and this is such a departure, I think I'd be like, okay, that's that one weird outlier. But the fact that there's stuff in Attack of the Clones, I'm like, that is so cool. And it is sandwiched in between just dreck that it makes it almost more disappointing in some regards.
Yes, that is how I view the character of General Grievous in Sith, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more here, I get, but I look at that character and go, I love a lot about this character, design, history, even the cough. And then I feel disappointed that I didn't get a little bit more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never really heard that applied to Attack of the Clones before that way, and I really kind of agree with you. There's a lot there, and then there's 3PO.
the 3PO stuff is rough. I honestly look. It's nothing that people haven't been saying for years and years and years.
Yeah, we're not having an insight. Yeah.
But it's just worth noting. Like, man, that chemistry between Hayden and Natalie is non-existent. They might as well be second cousins meeting at a family reunion. I just don't think... I think that the best version of Anakin Skywalker is Adam Driver in Force Awakens.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately... I just don't... Right. And what's a bummer is I think there are... Again... not an abject failure in terms of performance. I think when Hayden Christensen gets so mad and then tells Padme, like, I killed them all. And the women and the children. I'm like, ooh, wait. That, there it is. There it is. Bring it out more. But I feel like, this is going to be one of the mysteries of Star Wars I'll never know. Was it Hayden or was it George? What happened with that performance, you know?
Yeah, because I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to say revisionist history, but there's a lot of love for Hayden now, and I'm in that camp too, where you just kind of over time, you're just like, I love that guy. I grew up with that guy for a lot of people. I remember the first time I ever really got to have a discussion with someone about Hayden that was way different than, not necessarily mine. I'm not one of those like, I hate him, but just was like, oh, wow, it was Roxy Stryer.
Yeah, she loves
her. Yeah, her and her friend Sarah Stratton came on my show Jedi Alliance one day when and I think Maud had already left the show by then, and I was like, just come on, we'll talk about why you love Hayden.
Yeah.
And I could easily joke and say, well, you had little crushes on him at the time, which was part of it. But no, they had some good reasons for it and everything, and I'm like, okay, yeah. It's the first time I saw, looking back with a different idea on it, but I still go back to Attack of the Clones, and it's hard to deny. And I think that's a great question you asked, because if you listen to the commentary track, George will be like, the acting here was like 1930s movies. It's supposed to be really wooden and stiff. And that's a paraphrase, but he's kind of like, this is 2010 or 11. They did the commentaries or whatever. It's like, you sure, George?
It's a little bit of like the mommy dear. It's like, oh, it was supposed to be a comedy the whole time. What are you talking about? So yes, they're horrible problems in this movie. But let's talk for a second about the things that, like I said, are so good that almost make this a tough one for me. That third act of Attack of the Clones is just about everything in my mind that I daydreamed a Star Wars thing could possibly be.
Preach, my brother, preach.
The Battle of Geonosis is the second greatest Star Wars battle committed to
film. Love that, yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm not disagreeing at all. I love that. Yeah.
Just a sea of troopers, and just the way it was like the dust coming, and you're just like coming out of the dust. It's just all these troopers. And you're just like, this is massive, and holy cow, the Clone Wars are amazing.
George is, I would describe him as anti-war. Star Wars tells the story of maybe why you either have to fight or shouldn't fight, and love the bigger questions, right? George put so much beauty into that battle. It's a weird, like, what are you trying to tell? Like, what are you finding?
Yeah.
That shot, what you're talking about, the ship crashes and the dust fly and the laser blast, and then really just so take the big themes out, the sounds, the gunships flying up that angle behind them, with the zoom in angle, where you're suddenly like, boom, you zoom in across the battle to the other one. There's a lot there. It's a great sequence.
I would even go so far as to say, and maybe this is hyperbolic, but that's kind of what the show is anyway.
Sure.
I don't think that Luke being A New Hope, or being the last of the Jedi, Obi-Wan and Yoda kind of being, for all intents and purposes, the last of the Jedi. Right. I don't think that hits as hard if you don't see what were the Jedi at their most Jedi. It's like that arena scene when all those lightsabers start lighting up. I don't care how cynical, how much you hate this movie. Every single person that was in a theater in May of 2002 was on their feet cheering.
We did an episode of my show Star Wars Ranked on ForceCenter. Me and Joseph Scrimshaw, we ranked our favorite trailer moments. This is around the time of the Rise of Skywalker trailer first dropping, and the most recent one, not the Celebration one. And I listed that, seeing them surrounded.
Yeah.
In the trailer, and me and my friends watching that and getting like those nerd chills of like, oh, is that how the Jedi die? What's going on? Oh my God, it's the Jedi and they're in trouble. And it was that sequence alone. And it plays out slightly different in the movie for me, and the impact is different than that moment in the trailer. But even then, that moment, you're right. Sometimes you just... Yoda and Dooku fight. That doesn't stand up for as much for other people, but I was in theaters when people were standing ovationing the moment. Can
I just say to those people, like, get over yourself. You were one of those people that were clapping and cheering. You're like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Is Yoda actually going to fight? What is happening? I'm loving life.
Yeah.
We were all there, so just stop being too cool for school. We were all there, so relax.
Yeah.
One more quick note on Attack of the Clones that I don't think I appreciate at the time, but I appreciate a lot more now. I love the choice by George to go complete 180 on the Sith apprentice. We saw this ninja demon.
Yeah.
And then you go for someone who's gentlemanly, refined, not what you would think as well, obviously anyone who kind of knows cinema knows, Christopher Lee is going to be. But just like the idea that this guy is the other side of the dark side, and the Sith specifically, arguably the more dangerous side, not the brawn, the brain, the tongue. That's what I love about Dooku is he starts a war using his words.
So glad you transitioned to that. I think George did that very intentionally. You're right. Who's more effective? It's certainly not Maul.
Right.
His goal is vengeance. At last we reveal ourselves to the Jedi. He's hacked in two. And, comes back later. That's a different decision that leads to some great storytelling in Star Wars. But at the time, he's gone. And you go to this guy who was a Jedi, stately. And we're learning a lot more now about Dooku. We have learned this year alone, 2019. We learned a lot about Dooku. I love this character more now than I did then.
Yeah.
But even then, I always liked, and definitely one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars is that interrogation, the capture of Obi-Wan. and Dooku talking to him, because Christopher Lee makes some great choices as a performer, as he would, one of the legends. And I say, to me, at the core of that scene is Star Wars is telling you who should you trust, because everything in that scene he says is true.
Yeah,
he's not lying to Obi-Wan, and therefore the one opinion he states, which is he's putting it out there to use it against Obi-Wan, is like, if Qui-Gon were here, he'd definitely he'd probably side with me.
Yeah,
your master or mentor would. But I guess you're not. And it's a great scene. It's a great scene because Obi-Wan's like, what do you... Qui-Gon would never join you. And the Jedi, we're not bad. The government's not bad. What are you talking about? None of what you're saying, it could be true. And every word of it is true. And it's so intriguing to me.
Jango Fett, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. I mean, the seismic charges are my favorite sound in Star Wars.
Amazing. But
another
in terms
plus for
of
the film.
The character, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was just so many threads that Attack of the Clones started, and they kind of did the the Damon Lindelof Lost thing, where it's just like, okay, I guess just that's not happening anymore. The Jedi that left, I think, is super interesting. We'd find out later more about that. The Cypher Diaz, all that stuff. So again, such a mixed bag that I almost wish that it was just one, either fantastic or terrible.
That's a great point.
Yeah, but it's neither. Moving along to 2005's, oh no, we're going in chronological order. So we're going to skip ahead to 2008's The Clone Wars. Oh boy.
That's a great way to discuss this.
Yeah. So this is 2008. This is 3 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
This was, you talk about the dark time in Star Wars being before the special editions. I think for people of my generation, special editions are later. Mm-hmm. This was kind of the dark time. Star Wars, for all intents and purposes, was over. And it's not like my fandom or my love of Star Wars was over, but now these other loves that I have, Marvel, here comes Iron Man. Dark Knight, are you kidding me? And then in a new Indiana Jones. And then at the end of that summer, it's like, oh, and there's a Star Wars. I'm like, wait a second, can I handle all of this?
Yeah.
And after riding such a high of one of maybe arguably the best summer for movies that I can remember, oh boy, this was just in every sense of the word a kick in the nuts.
Yeah.
This was rough. There's no way around it.
There's no way around it. I actually didn't see it in theaters. I was so, and as positive as I am now, and I always have been, I was coming out of like just what you said. All right, Star Wars is done. That's part of my life. And we got other things going on, and I was like, what? An animated movie? Star Wars animated? What? And I saw some of the clips, and for my generation, like, you think Star Wars animation, like you're like Ewoks, droids, the Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. I saw some sequences in the animation. They were early on in the game, and Clone Wars animation. The look, I don't know the technical terms as well as everyone, and sometimes people tweet angrily about that. The design, the look, whatever, it just didn't look that great.
Right.
And I was like, I'm good. And so I skipped it. I don't speak for him, but my pal Scrimshaw, also equally as positive. He says that was his darkest hour as a Star Wars fan. In the theater going, huh?
And I guess that was the other thing. I showed up to the Friday night opening weekend, maybe 10 people in there. I was like, wow, Star Wars is dead.
Yeah.
This is dead.
Yeah.
Then a Warner Brothers logo shows up. I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
Then this kind of weird bum this bongo playing Star Wars. I'm like, and then war is broken out over the thing. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And on top of all of that, it's just like a pilot for any show is hard.
Yeah.
And not a lot of great ones. You could probably count on your hands how many great pilots there are.
Yeah.
This turned me off from this whole show for years. And the show is great.
Yeah.
But this was the worst. It was the worst thing, not only for the show, but I feel like for Star Wars. And it's just, it's not good.
Not good. I like some of the battle sequences. I do like some of that in the beginning, but then what is it? You got Zero the Hutt, and man,
And to see where Ahsoka is now, especially in the fandom.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Beloved.
Yeah.
Maybe top 5 worst debuts for a character.
Yeah, and they always talk about a joke about it, but yeah, it's one of those things. If you could get a time machine and go back to in 2008, be like, hey, this is going to be one of the best characters ever. In fact, Ken, you're going to love this character. You probably occasionally rank it in your top 5. I'd be like, there's not a way no way I believe that.
If I were to walk out of that movie and be like, oh, by the way, did you know in about 10 years an action figure of that girl is going to be like $100 on eBay? I'd be like, get out of here, Sky Guy. You are dreaming. So yeah,
sure, Stinky.
Even as much as I like the Clone Wars show now, I have rewatched the movie recently, and I was like, now I have a different view of Star Wars. I was no, this one's tough. This one's still
it's a miss. Yeah,
it's a misfire. So, chronologically moving forward to 2005's Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This one, I rank very highly, probably more than most people would, and I know it's a little unfair. But it's my list. I don't care. I am influenced a lot by the novelization, and I bring a lot of the elements of the novel to kind of fill in some of the mistakes or the logic gaps of the film, because the novel does such a good job of doing the heavy lifting on a lot of like the logical steps. Because let's be real, as cool as it is to see, and as much as you're waiting for it, the logic of Anakin's turn, if you're only watching the movies, it's a little bit like
a little rushed, or a little
okay. Yeah. But the novel does such a great job. It pains me that some of the stuff, especially the conversation when he finds out that Palpatine is a Sith Lord, and that whole conversation in the book. Look, I'm not a bad guy. Tell me what you want. I'll give you whatever you want because I love you. Like that stuff I feel like should have been in the movie.
100%. It's been a while since I've checked in on the novel, but again, I mentioned it in Phantom Menace. Terry Brooks' novelization of Phantom Menace, I thought it has some really great stuff that I just recently reread after 20 years.
Right.
And my ticket for the Phantom Menace fell out. I was like, that's where I put that.
That's pretty cool bookmarker.
There's some great stuff in there. So I think it's fair to factor it in to Revenge of the Sith, because it all becomes about the era of storytelling.
Yeah.
Sith is easy to say it's the best of the prequels. It is for a lot of various reasons. I think that Phantom Menace might be maybe my favorite story of the prequels, though. But Sith has just got all the big flashy things that pull you in, and it's got the good scenes. And for me, the score, it's my favorite John Williams score.
Wow. Okay.
Padme's ruminations, the opening, the war stuff with the drums and a lot of different things, the working into the Imperial March stuff. Like, look, ranking Williams scores is an impossible task because he is a legend for a reason. But I thought he brought a little different things to Star Wars. Late in the game, for the last time, and at the time, it's my last shot at doing this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I used to always say, so this is from being one of those like, the prequels are stupid and George made mistakes kind of people, which I was for a little bit, to where I'm now, or hashtag prequelist, and I can have these conversations and write about them and everything, talk about them. There was this midpoint where Revenge of the Sith was the one where I'd be home alone on a Saturday and I'd pop in a DVD and it'd be Revenge of the Sith, and I'd be like, I can't admit this to people. I look around the room. I hope no one catches me watching Revenge of the Sith or a prequel, because I'm not supposed to like these.
Right, yeah.
And there was a lot of Star Wars in that movie that I really was like, I love this. I mean, it's all right.
Yeah, I guess there's some cool parts. No, I always loved Revenge of the Sith, and I think it's the same reason why I think my favorite Marvel movie is actually Infinity War. I think it's, to me, I enjoy it much more than like Endgame, and I think it's because it has this dire sense of urgency. And you just know, like, more than any other Star Wars movie. And it's crazy because we're talking, in one of them, like, a whole planet is about to be destroyed in about 5 minutes if you don't get it. But to me, it's like from the moment that Anakin and Palpatine talk at the opera, which is maybe my favorite Star Wars scene.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Right. There's definitely this sense of urgency, and you're like, this is going downhill really fast. And ultimately, my favorite musical montage ending of any of the Star Wars movies.
Oh, yes, the final. So going back to my point, when I would be kind of like secretly watching it, I would watch the movie, and when the movie ended in the last few sequences and the twin sons and baby Han and baby Leia, or baby Han, baby Luke, baby Leia, we didn't get young Han, thankfully, in that one. Yeah. I had that like, oh, I gotta watch New Hope feeling a lot.
Right.
And that's where I was starting to feel like, wait a minute, does this movie actually, do I like it? Because it inspires Star Wars love in me. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
I Revenge of the Sith. Also, I'm a big wrestling term. I'm a big mark for Palpatine. So
me too.
For him to finally get that his moment, did he oversell a little bit? Maybe, but you know what? I still loved it.
Hey, look, man, I did write about that in my book. I wrote about that scene. I wrote about Palpatine. It wasn't about the scene. I wrote about Palpatine. And specifically about McDiarmid's over the top, which Lucas kept saying, give me more, give me more. I think it's just fitting because he is exactly what you just said. In that particular moment, he is getting everything he wants.
Yep.
And he knows it. And he knows that this is the final piece of the puzzle.
And he's been waiting for so long.
And it is power, unlimited power. And he is getting it there. And I think so. It's like, yeah, that's how it should be played in my mind. I love that moment.
Even, you know what? A hot take. No, doesn't really bother me that much. I know.
No, it does. At the time, it did. At the time, it did. And the clunky walking. But that makes a ton of sense now.
Yeah.
Whether or not Lucas intended that or not, whether I that's a different conversation. But to have it, and then in the Now Legends novel that followed it up, which is what Darth Vader. What is that? So it's the Darth Vader trilogy.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
The answer, I remember reading that, and I like that book a lot, but the answer was like, oh, he was learning to walk on his new legs. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
And that's even in
yeah, that makes sense.
It's in that novelization of Revenge of the Sith. But the Anakin becoming Darth Vader, like physically, is probably the greatest piece of Star Wars, maybe outside that Jar Jar short little excerpt.
But
this is what it feels like to be Anakin Skywalker, that little run.
Yeah.
You have to get that book. You have to find that excerpt. You have to have that in your brain.
Yeah.
You said you were glad Han Solo wasn't in this one because he's going to be in our next one. This is 2018's Solo, a Star Wars story, taking place between Revenge of the Sith and Episode 4, A New Hope. This was one where you talk about speculate responsibly. If you go in with expectations, you can't be mad if they don't do exactly what you want.
Yeah.
This is the polar opposite. I walked in with zero expectations.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was getting.
Yeah.
Wasn't overly interested. Again, very much like the Clone Wars. I had just been served on a silver platter Avengers Infinity War. So like my other fandoms had been serviced so high.
Like,
that I was
what,
like
3 weeks prior?
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I walked out and I was like, I think that was pretty good.
Right.
And then I saw it again about a month later and I was like, no, this is really good. I really like this movie, and it just bums me out that box office has equated into this kind of the stereotype that it's just bad.
Failure.
Yeah.
Failure. Yeah, man. And I think that I remember when you were telling me that, and that's when I was like, I think I still like Billy Patterson, because we had the problems with the conversation about Rogue One, which we'll get to in a second. But here's what I'll say about Solo. I get, while as a movie, I get a lot of why people wouldn't like it. I'm not surprised by a lot of it when people tell me. Where like I'll fight for Last Jedi or other things, or even Phantom Menace, Revenge of Sith. I'll be like, hey, have you thought about this? A lot of them are like, no, I see what you're saying. I get it. I just think there's a lot of, it just became like, it almost became like Solo was bad, right?
Right.
because did you see it? Oh no, I didn't see it. I heard it was bad. That I heard that more than any other Star Wars movie from Star Wars fans who are not in the Star Wars discussion world, who don't have podcasts and everything. I have some friends, believe it or not, who don't have podcasts. That we all love doing them. But one of them, his cat is named Lando. My friend Joe. He's like, I think he's seen it by now. I don't know, but we were talking at a party not too long ago. And he's like, yeah, I didn't see it. I was like, why? And he's like, I haven't get around to it. I'm like, dude, you're a Star Wars guy.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't. And the wasn't necessary. I don't like that argument against any film because nothing's necessary.
Sure, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that might go wrong. Instead of looking at what's quote-unquote wrong with the movie, let me just say this. I think because the movie doesn't have, I keep saying this a lot now, the movie doesn't have the world is in peril, the galaxy's in peril, and this must happen to save it, it feels smaller, quieter, and less than.
Yeah.
When instead again, I really believe if it was a Disney Plus series, people would have liked it a lot better.
It's just crazy to me. Someone I really like and respect was like, what a cynical cash grab. I was like, well, one, anything that shows up in your local movie theater is by definition a cash grab. They want money for you to see it. And two, I don't think that any Star Wars movie that will dig so deep as to put a Terrace Kasi reference, I just can't call that cynical. The fact that your headcanon of what you think Han Solo should be doesn't equate to cynicism. I actually think that this Star Wars is probably the most lighthearted of any of the new Disney stuff. I love all the characters, all the little spices that it threw in. I don't think that it doesn't go out of its way to retcon, and it doesn't feel like two different Han Solos or two different Landos. It's like, okay, I can see the A to C and the B I can fill in with my imagination in the meantime. I love a lot of the sequences. I just think it's fun. If I want, you talk about how you would throw on Revenge of the Sith. I found Solo in the last year to be the one that I'll just throw on for fun.
Same. I joke I've seen it over 45 times now, maybe. A lot of it was I was doing research for the book I wrote, but it is that movie of, because I don't like a little bit of the stuff in the opening. Lady Proxima, I wish maybe wasn't Linda Hunt's voice. She did great, but I wish it was an alien voice. There's little things like that, right? But it is the movie where just like, I can get into it. I can have fun. I think Alden Ehrenreich did an amazing job. Yeah, there was director problems, and Ron Howard still was able to get that out of the project. That was probably more chaotic than we'll ever know. The character of Kira really grew for me. Some supplemental material helped that, but that happens.
Yeah.
We talked, again, the era of storytelling. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you don't need to read every book, but maybe you owe it to yourself to go get the complete picture, because a lot of these novels do a great job of tying back and fixing, and not fixing. That's a bad word.
Recontextualizing.
That's a better way to look at it. And Solo got a lot of that. It is also just fun. I love the way it's shot, and it got a lot of crap because some theaters didn't know how to show it. That's not the movie's fault. Bob Iger released it at the wrong time. That's not the movie's fault. We could go on and on and on, but I do get it. I don't fight. I don't die on that Solo hill as much as I do other films. I feel sad. I feel sad for a lot of people involved in the movie, and I feel sad. It's maybe a little, I don't know, maybe it's an ego. Maybe it makes me sound like an egomaniac here, but I just feel sad for some of the fans that they shut their mind off of it so quickly or so powerfully, when it does a great job of showing the true oppression of the Empire. It shows a new face of rebellion, that the rebellion wasn't just a militaristic fight. It was people, communities coming together because their worlds, their lives have been forever altered and changed. That's Infant's Nest and the Cloud Riders. And the character of Han ties back beautifully. Lawrence Kasdan and John Kasdan took great care to make sure they were giving you a younger Han Solo that builds into the one that you love. And, so it's there. It's there for you if you want.
Well, part of me wonders if behind the scenes, behind the shadows, kind of like you said, you would sit and put on Revenge of the Sith and be like, I'm not supposed to like this, but I'm going to put it on. If the same thing's happening now with Solo, people who are like, ugh, and then they watch it like, oh crap, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
You know, I hope when it eventually makes its way to Disney Plus that it kind of finds a new life there.
Yeah. It will.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're now at episode 4, A New Hope, 1977.
No, you're not.
Oh, no, we're not.
No, you're not. Go about 3 days prior.
I just want it to be. You're right, Ken. My mind had a hard time with this one and wanted to skip it, but we have to go back. We have to revisit 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Yeah. You're right. Three-ish a week-ish.
But as much as I quote know about Star Wars and compete in trivia contests, Star Wars math sometimes.
Sure.
It's like Solo's like, I don't know, it's like 8 years after Sith. Figure it out.
We'll call it a full Dagobah month.
There you go. That's a great way to look at it.
I have had, much like Attack of the Clones, more so than Attack of the Clones, I have had such a roller coaster ride with this film, from flat out anger and hatred
and suffering
to a full appreciation to now. I think I split the difference.
Nice.
Okay. I think because I watched it again after we did our episode about, a few months afterwards. I was like, I don't know why. I think I texted you. I was like, I don't know why this time everything worked and everything that bothered me just wasn't there anymore. And then I caught it again on Disney Plus recently because I wanted to see the 4K, which, by the way, the Star Wars movies that aren't available in 4K on disc on Disney Plus, beautiful. And while I didn't feel hatred, I didn't even feel disappointment. Some of the stuff that really worked, I was like, or some of the stuff I should say that I ignored that time that I watched, I was like, okay, it is still there, but there are things I really like. So, look, you guys can go back. You can listen to the episode where you and I talk about it. The stuff that bothers me, it's all in that episode. Let me say the stuff that I really do like that I don't think that I pointed out enough. I think Cassian Andor, again, we keep coming back to this philosophy, but it's just kind of the double-edged sword of Star Wars. It just kind of is what it is, and you have to live in this reality. The stuff around Star Wars, around the movie, the tie-ins, the comics, the novels, they have made Cassian this character that he was a separatist.
Yeah.
That's, he's grew up in such a different era and has such a different feeling to him that when he finally, when you get to Rogue One and you realize you're at the end of his life, he doesn't know it, but you know it. What a tragic life this guy had. I don't know. Has he ever been happy a single day in his life?
Right.
And I think to me that just makes his death even more powerful because I know he's never going to get that happiness, that happy ending.
I would love to. You have to pay for that. I would love in the upcoming series that is still on the table. I say that only because other than Tony Gilroy now being involved, we haven't heard a ton of the Cassian series. What it might be. I would love a moment of him like smiling. Like, I feel good.
Even if it's just a small victory, I guess he gets some form of closure, I guess you could say, at the end of Rogue One, but it's not happiness. It's not like you can rest now.
It's acceptance. It's a little, maybe I'll say peace. But yeah, it's acceptance.
Yeah.
Maybe personal redemption. All of this was worth it. I'm dying, but all of this, all the killings, all the things I did bad, now I did it for something big. Yeah.
I still think there's some wafer thin characters, but I can look past it for, I think, we talked about Krennic. We talk about Krennic a lot on, stuff that we do. I love Krennic.
Love Krennic, yeah.
I think the Battle of Scarif is, remember I said that Battle of Geonosis is the first best, or the second best. I think Battle of Scarif is the best space battle in Star Wars.
It is some of the best Star Wars that ever Star Wars, is what I say. It is everything, and I think a lot of people who love that movie, I'll say I'm saying one of them. I think the movie first, second act, you feel some of the problems. You feel the director switch, I think, a little bit. But that third act, things I remember watching it for the very first time and seeing the two Star Destroyers being pushed into each other and crashing and falling, and I was just like, I cannot believe I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
I'm seeing two Star Destroyers crashing together, and what am I? My 7-year-old self is flipping out right now, and that's the surface level stuff that really pulls you in, and is really worth it. We talked a lot about it, so I don't want to remix everything I love about it. It's a movie that is served well by the supplemental material, and I know that's not supposed to be the case with movies, right? It's supposed to stand on its own. But I'm not a film critic like you said, but I am a Star Wars fan. And to the Star Wars fans out there, if you got the time, check out Catalyst. If you got the time, check out the novelization of Rogue One, which gives some insights to the characters, and the book by Beth Revis, Rebel Rising, which is technically one of those YA novels, but don't let that throw you off. It is because there's sex and death in it. It turns some of the, not just the character of Jyn, but it turns some of the moments in the movie into some real deep moments that I didn't expect, And so, again, we're talking about the movies, so I get that being thrown back in my face of the movie must stand on its own, but I just think that era is great, and yes, some of the things, first, second act, it's not that they're bad. I always say I would have wanted one more mission or moment or beat of that crew together to gel together so it felt like family in the end. I think that's my biggest takeaway from the first and second act. It needs that, but
I think it's fair to say that I went from hating this movie to liking it with a few reservations. I think that's a big leap.
Yeah, I just remember I was at the coffee machine at the Defy Media offices, big automatic coffee machine. Billy comes around. It's just like, man, I hated that movie. I didn't know how to. I wanted to hug you or throw you off the balcony. I didn't know.
I told you I got so worked up on my drive home that I ended up about an hour and a half away.
It's crazy.
Over by Magic Mountain.
That's crazy.
I was about almost a whole county away because I just got so carried away talking to someone on the phone about it. So now we can get to episode 4, A New Hope, 1977.
Yeah.
I say on almost every episode of my show since the very beginning that with few exceptions, no movie is 100% perfect or 100% terrible. And I've never said what those few exceptions are because I don't want to be put on the hook. But I will say there's maybe 3-4 perfect movies, in my opinion. I think A New Hope is a perfect movie.
That's powerful. I don't necessarily have the ammo to disagree with you because any little quibble is... A quibble is little.
Yeah.
Princess Leia's dress doesn't get dirty. That's a quibble. Some of even the writing maybe of Leia. I mean, Carrie Fisher, if there's any limitations to the writing, Carrie blows past those limitations, number one. But two, it's like, I don't want to say of the time, but like Princess Leia kind of going, I lost my whole planet. Here's a blanket, Luke, which might be a little bit of a, is turned into one of the symbols of strength of the character of Leia going forward. It's still to this day something that informs the character that I always say might have been just a little oversight on Lucas's part. Like, she's the princess. She's going to comfort our hero. Her whole family and planet just blew up. Whatever. I think so that now I look at that scene and go, wow, there's the strength of Leia. So all that to say, I'm going to let you call it a perfect movie.
I think at this point, and I've talked about this before, we've become this CinemaSins ding. But I don't even that. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah. Maybe an oversight, but when you talk about an example of the hero's journey mixed with all these different flavors throughout film history and storytelling history, and you put them in this stew, and out comes A New Hope.
Yeah,
it's delicious. It is 100% delicious.
Anything else, and I don't necessarily want to expose your list of perfect movies, but anything else that may or may not be considered a perfect movie, if you consider them perfect, there's a reason. There's a reason it even gets in the conversation. Raiders of the Lost Ark, to me, is a really perfect movie.
That is also on my list.
Back to the Future for me.
That is third on my. You're ding ding ding. Yep. I've only got a couple left. So.
The Great Muppet Caper. No, I'm kidding. There's a reason. Even if you could not cinema sins it, but even if you could say, hey, here's why it's not. It's still there in the conversation for a reason, and New Hope. It wasn't an accident. It was a miracle, but it wasn't an accident that it affected an entire audience at the time and has spawned all of this.
It changed the way that movies were made.
Yeah.
Not just Star Wars.
Everything about it.
Not just sci-fi. Movies were made.
Yeah, and that is what is so fascinating. And you're a Beatles fan too, and I'm looking on your bookshelf here. We're recording. You do have a Kiss book, a couple Kiss books, two Kiss books, but you got a big book that says the Beatles, and I'm such a Beatle nut, man. And you can look back and go to some of their music and go, it's jingly jangly, 3 chords from the '60s. Yeah, a new generation. Every generation rediscovers it again, discovers the band naturally, but there's a reason they changed the game.
Yep. And
it's the first band to put lyrics on an album. John Lennon credited for some techniques in the recording studio because we need this sound. Let's do this. And Sir George Martin being there to do it. Star Wars is that.
Yeah.
A New Hope is that. That's why it's so fascinating. That's why the stories of how it was made or almost not made. Alan Ladd Jr. going, I believe in this American Graffiti kid. The Sandstorm, everything about it, this miracle. It gets made, and yeah.
For my money, still in my top 5, if not top 3 greatest third acts of a movie ever. The Death Star Trench is the best. Not even my opinion. You're just wrong if this is. No, I'm just kidding. The Death Star Trench is, in my opinion, the best Star Wars sequence ever. The drama, I just can't even wrap my head around what it must have been like to be an audience member in '77 and think like, what am I seeing? That's
why I love that recording that got released on YouTube.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's great. I think that sequence is in a way the movie itself, but in a way that sequence is what we hold a lot of other Star Wars set pieces and sequences up against.
I agree, 100%. 100%.
The feel of it. So if it doesn't feel as good, it's because it didn't make us feel that way again.
Right.
If it exceeds it in any way, it's because it did something that it built upon it. Yeah.
I could watch that Death Star Trench run just over and over and over and still feel the same excitement when Han's like, "You're all clear, kid. Let's blow this thing and go home."
Yep.
Just an amazing movie.
A moment made even better by the backstory that I got in Solo. I love the moment. I now think, because he runs off from Enfys Nest, I think in my head there's a conversation on the Falcon after Han Solo leaves Yavin 4. He's got his reward. And I think at one point Chewie turns to him and says, "You're doing it again. You're doing it again. You left Enfys Nest. What if we joined then? We wouldn't have needed to even be here." And Han went, "You're right." I think that's what happened.
I love that headcanon, and I'm going to adopt that now. Thank you very much. Moving on to 1980s Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I think as a kid. Now, remember I told you that I saw New Hope in the theaters the first time I ever saw the movie all the way through. And then I saw Empire also for the first time in theaters.
Okay.
I don't want to say it scared me, but as a kid, like, I don't know the language of film. I don't know if you're like, this movie's dark. I'd be like you can't see, but it felt more dangerous.
Absolutely.
It felt more visceral. It felt not just because of Hoth, not literally, but it felt colder to me, know? And like I said,
the way it was shot.
Just like I said, with Revenge of the Sith, I love the sense of urgency of Empire Strikes Back, the sense of dread that is stitched throughout coming off one of the most jubilant, hopeful movies to come to this one where it's just like in our darkest hour.
Yeah.
And I didn't, everyone talks about, the shocking moment is Luke, no, I am your father.
Right.
For me, the most shocking part as an 8-9-year-old was, did he really just cut his hand off?
Oh,
was that
yeah.
a thing?
Yeah.
And I remember I like raced home because I had the Empire Strikes Back junior novelization, but I didn't want to open it until I saw the movie.
Good man.
And
Good
I just
kid.
skipped right ahead to try to find. I was like, wait a minute, did I see what I saw? Is that a thing? Even though I clearly saw the robot thing, I was like, they wouldn't put that. Oh my God, it's in the book. It's a real thing. I think for whatever reason that stuck with me. Like,
That's
I
awesome.
can't believe that Luke Skywalker, the hero, got his hand cut off.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, so we'll get to the ranking in a bit, but Empire ranks very high for a lot of people for the reason, much like if New Hope's perfect and you consider it perfect because it just has to, because it's in the conversation. Empire, what a task. What a task to come in and follow that movie, what you just said, and build upon it, expand the story, and be so, like you said, dark. And I love this. I love the making of it just as well. I love listening to Irvin Kershner talk about it. And you don't have to go even that much deeper than the Empire of Dreams doc, which is Lucasfilm made. But just hearing him say, like, I didn't have, all the big pieces. I didn't have the happy ending. I had romance, but I couldn't do a lot of smooching, he says. You know, like I had this, I had that. I had a lot of humor and everything. To put it together in the way that he does. And it's interesting to me because the sequel era has to do a little bit what Empire had to do, which is we won. We celebrated. We got medals. And then to have to go, well, realistically, the battle would have to go on. And here's how that story is told. That's, to me, one of the biggest successes Empire did.
You know, I was watching the movie on Disney Plus this morning. Just to, I'm doing my rewatch before Rise of Skywalker. And one thing that I never really thought about until today, and I think it just plays to why this movie is so powerful too, is, we talk about how great John Williams' score is.
Right.
But the one thing they do in Empire that they don't do in some of the other movies is there's a lot of times, you may not even realize it, that the score is just yanked out and we are just in that moment and it is just the ambience of wherever we are. And I didn't realize it till this morning. I'm like, that creates this sense of like, this is real. It's intense. That sense of dread, that sense of urgency. I implore if you guys haven't watched it in a while, go back and really pay attention to where they decided to leave the score out, because then those majestic moments where it does play feel even bigger.
That's it. I'm going to do that. I'm about to do my big Saga rewatch here, and I'm going to do that. It reminds me a little bit. There's in rock and roll and rock music. There's something called it's the Bob Rock pause. Bob Rock was the producer. Best example, one of my favorite all-time bands is Semisonic. Their hit Closing Time, everyone knows. They're much more, I mean, it's a great song, actually, but the much more than that song, if that's all you know. But they talk about the reason Jacob Slichter, the drummer, wrote a book, and he said the reason the song was so big is Bob Rock put one of his trademark pauses. So there's a silence before the song explodes, and the explosion feels that much better.
Yeah.
And I think what you described is that, and that's a real good insight into Empire's success.
There's a lot of juicy little things about Empire, which is why you can watch it a million times and each time find something. How many times have I seen Empire? And I just realized today.
Countless,
So let's move on to 1983, Star Wars Episode 6,
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi. As a child, after having seen all three of them, I think Jedi was the one that I revisited the most.
The saga continues. Yes. Yes.
It's funny because now as an adult, I tend to put that one down lower. It's not one that I rewatch quite as often. That was the one where I realized I was like, as much as I love all the Star Wars movies, the first half hour of this movie is pretty inconsequential.
It's a different film.
It's a completely different movie.
It's a short film before the film.
Which, when you're a kid, you don't care. You're like, well, obviously they had to go get Han.
They have to get Han.
What's the next adventure?
Yeah.
As an adult, I'm like, I could probably start it around the Sarlacc pit. I think everything before there is like, okay, let's mosey along. That's just me.
No. I mean, this has come up a lot, and it's like we get in this discussion a lot about filler and the word filler to describe TV shows and episodes. And I've used that word to describe episodes before. I think there's sometimes that exists, but but sometimes it's for budgetary reasons, especially on animated shows where you're like, that was kind of filler. Well, we needed to save our money for the big battle.
Sure,
you're going to love at the end. But same with Game of Thrones, same with this, same with Mandalorian. You have to, what do you learn about the characters? And so the filler, the opening is this weird filler, but we learn obviously a lot about the characters, where Luke is and what they're willing to do, blah, 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 that simple stuff. But it is really weird to think that as a kid, they're the rebellion, right? Yeah. Han, Luke, and Leia are the rebellion.
Right.
Never mind the fact that Han officially does not join the rebellion until he becomes General Solo, by the way.
Which you never really think about when you're a kid.
You don't think about it. Captain Solo refers to him as the Millennium Falcon captain. He is all through Empire, not officially part. He hasn't signed up, doesn't have the health care through them. He is not part of the Rebel Alliance.
He's a freelancer.
In the novel, they explain that moment when when it's revealed, General Solo, as your strike team assembled, Leia looks at him and then falls in love with him in that moment, because she's like, he finally committed to this. He finally committed to something bigger than himself, and that's a powerful theme in Han's life. So that all that's good. But just to think, all this is going on, and we as a kids were like, they're the rebellion. And the rest of the Rebel Alliance is like checking their watches. Well, I hope they come back. We got to fight the Death Star soon. Anyone heard from them?
I mean, I guess as a logical adult, it's like, well, yeah, the whole Rebel Alliance can't risk sending people down there to attack Jabba's palace for one guy that's not even a part of the thing.
He hasn't even. We offered him a job. He said no.
Right. That being said, look, there's so many. I've seen too many. What was Luke's plans? No one knows. Luke doesn't know. But as a kid, I didn't care, and even now, I said, I don't care now. I don't necessarily care that much. Again, if I watch Return of the Jedi just on a whim, I'll usually start it around the Sarlacc pit.
Well, that's when you start making your dinner or your lunch,
right?
And then you come in with your sandwich right about the Sarlacc.
Because I actually think the sail barge attack is also one of the coolest Star Wars battles. As much as
no, it is. Even with Luke's phantom kick, it's great.
Love the kick. Big mark for the green lightsaber. I love the green lightsaber.
Absolutely.
I love a lot of the things in Return of the Jedi. I do think that, unfortunately, Han Solo is that's my least favorite version of Han Solo. It doesn't quite feel like Han Solo.
Look, man, I have been almost jumped in parking lots for saying that Alden Ehrenreich is a better Solo in Solo than Harrison is in Return of the Jedi. And what? People want to throw rocks at me like they're Ewoks. Harrison sleptwalk through the movie.
Harrison would probably be the first person to tell you. He's like, that's why I said I didn't want to come back. There was nothing for me to do.
Kill me. Yeah.
I think anytime we're in the space battle or the lightsaber battle and we cut back to Endor, I'm like, okay. I think that's just me. I think the speeder bike, again, the speeder bike chase, one of the greatest, most iconic Star Wars moments.
So I don't want to change the tone or change it, but no. Please. So we're having fun hacking on this movie a little bit there, but I love this because this is the first one I saw in theaters in '83.
Yeah,
it's the first one that got me excited, and therefore I still, which like I said earlier with the trench run, I still look at a lot of the things in this movie as the standard bearer for it.
Sure,
which is why this movie does rank still relatively high for me on things. My favorite scene, sequence, moment in Star Wars is in the throne room. The revelation of Leia, Luke jumping out, the chorus, the song, the music, Palpatine. That's my favorite Star Wars sequence. That space battle probably set the tone more than I know. We can have probably too long of a discussion on where I am now with the Ewoks, which is love them to death. Have gone through that journey too. But therefore, that battle is still what I go to. Hoth's my favorite land battle in Star Wars. But so the movie is, for me, I'm one of the people that Jedi lost a little impact as I got older. But man, you want to talk about feeling the joy of Star Wars? That's where it began for me, though.
Sure.
Yeah. So I still feel that.
Oh, I 100% get it, and that's probably the way you feel about Jedi is probably what I transfer over in some ways to Phantom Menace, where it's like
no, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same for that generation, your generation, or the prequel baby generation. Absolutely the same.
So let's move ahead to a movie I actually didn't think I would ever see in my lifetime, which was
Right.
2015's episode 7, The Force Awakens. Again, this is one it has a little bit of Phantom Menace in the sense that I just can't emotionally detach myself from the excitement I felt around it with the movie itself. But I kind of don't care because I love Force Awakens so much that it's like, why would I want to detach that from it? You know, why would I not want to amplify the fun that I have with this movie? You know,
I have a lot of fun, a source of fun and joy in my life. Maybe I should disconnect from that.
Right. Maybe I should put on my film critic goggles and ding it to death. No, it's like, look, there's a reason why there are songs that hit, because they're easy to pick up the chorus, they're easy to pick up the words.
This is a radio hit.
Yeah,
it's a radio single.
This is a #1 pop single.
Yeah.
And it's a retread of A New Hope. Oh, okay. Well, they gave me new characters.
Yeah.
They in my headcanon, they kind of they were like, what didn't necessarily go right about Anakin? Let's try that one more time with Kylo. And it works splendidly here. Everything feels new but feels old. It's everything that I want. I walked out of that theater. I was like, I can't believe it happened. I can't believe they made an episode 7 and it's actually what I wanted to see.
Yeah, man. Look, Joseph Grimshaw and I did an episode recently of ForceCenter on the old and the new of Force Awakens. We will argue and contend that movie introduced a lot of new things to Star Wars, but I get it. You saw sand, you saw X-Wings and TIE fighters in a trench run, and you said, this is the same. But at the same time, it is a soft reboot. Not of the story, but of the franchise.
Right.
And that's been well documented. Now, we don't need to go into that. With the first time I saw the movie and walked out, there was a person in an industry that we knew at the time who said, you know, it was such a fun movie that I think if you don't like it, you might be trying hard not to like it. It doesn't mean that he didn't say it was a great movie. He didn't say this, that, and we could talk about the merits of that of film critic. It's a great film. I'm not here for that. I'm here for the joy, and that movie brought joy, and did such a good job. Because, like you just said, we didn't think it was happening. But since 1983 for me, since 97 for you, or I've said, we've been planning it in our head.
Right.
Legend stuff, take that, whether you love it or not, put that aside. In your head, what movie? Even if you thought Episode 7 should be Thrawn, Hot Chocolate, and Mara Jade, you had an expectation for this movie. So that movie faced all of that, and we got this great rock single that comes on the radio, and you go, I feel like I've heard this chorus before, and I like it, and I'm going to go buy it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love Force Awakens. Kylo Ren has become one of the richest characters. Rey has become Rey has become such an icon within and with like outside of Star Wars. Something that I didn't think was going to happen. I honestly thought it was like, okay, they're going to give me a new protagonist, and I don't think it's going to be, Saved by the Bell, the new class, where it's like, I like it, but it's not going to be. And I honestly think for a generation, it will be Rey. And it's like, oh yeah, what was the old guy's name? The one that used to be like the Rey,
I have had conversations thanks to ForceCenter and Jedi Council and me being just kind of exposed to a lot of wonderful listeners who support. I know listeners who are like Force Awakens, and we're not talking the kids.
Right.
Teens, 20s, adults. Force Awakens was their first exposure to Star Wars, and there is a sense of, the original trilogies, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're not being cynical or disrespectful. They're like, no, I get it. But man, Rey, Kylo, Finn, Poe, BB-8.
Right. I will say that Force Awakens, even though, A New Hope I call perfect, I think Force Awakens is the best paced of any Star Wars movie.
I was going to say it's so sleek.
It just moves.
Yeah.
There's no like, okay, I'll jump in at this point. And it's like, no, it starts and it does not stop.
Even the moments that I might occasionally, a bathroom break moment. Me and my pal Van William ranked those on my show, Star Wars Ranked. We love the movies, but there are moments where you might go make your sandwich. Sure. Or you might go, and the movie's just playing on in your living room. Force Awakens has maybe a couple Maz's Castle. I actually like the Rathtar sequence, but I don't like the way the Rathars look. Whatever. But even then, the moment it's so fast that it's a quick bathroom break. I better get back because something great's coming.
Yeah, it's a number one, not a number two.
It's a sleek. That's a pause, or just the Clone Wars movie. Yeah, it's so sleek. Again, a single on the radios. I love that you described it like that.
Moving on to the final canological movie, and this is a can of worms. 2017 Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. So here's the thing. I walked into this movie, and so I walked into Force Awakens, and I was like, oof, I'm nervous, but nervous excitement. And I walked out fist pumping. Yes, yes. Buying tickets for tomorrow. Got to see this again tomorrow. I went into Last Jedi like, oh boy, okay, here we go. And I walked out of Last Jedi and I went, That was literally, my wife was like, what'd you think? I was like, And that could be taken as like, but it wasn't. And sometimes I think not us sitting in this room and not even people listening to this necessarily, but it's like when you see a movie or something, it's like, well, I gotta tweet out my reaction. I gotta get my reaction out there. And I don't think Last Jedi is meant to have an instant answer for how you felt. I think would probably make Rian Johnson very happy that I was just like, I need to sit on this one for a minute because I was challenged. To this day, I think Last Jedi has things that I adore and things that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Honestly, I don't. And I think that's why Last Jedi is still being talked about. I know there's some stuff about toxic and blah, blah, blah and politics and all that. But I still think this movie it's challenging. It challenges you. And sometimes I enjoy that. And sometimes it's like, I don't know. It doesn't have it's not sleek. It's not meant to be sleek. It doesn't have a ton of rah-rah moments. Even like the big sequences, on Crate is kind of pales in comparison to Spectacle, but there's a lot there.
We've been talking about music, and we did this on Black Series Rebels. My friends Alex Back and Steve Ellis have a great show. If you guys haven't heard it, you should go on that show because they'd love talking Star Wars with you. Big music fans. So we had this discussion. I might be remixing a little bit. 1994, Weezer comes out with the Blue Album. Everything's a radio hit. Everything's perfect. Buddy Holly, woohoo, my sweater undone, everything, man. Singing about Kiss and Kitty Pryde on the Wall. And then it gets so popular, it gets big, everyone loves it, and then out comes, the second album, and you got, El Scorcho, and you got Pink Triangle, and you got all these songs, and it's dark, and it's this, and it's complicated, and everyone goes, no! And then years later go, oh, I got what they were saying in that. I got what Rivers Cuomo was doing. I got where he was. I really do believe over time, I hope, because take out the big clickbaity headline discussions over it. Take it out. And I'm not even taking it out to disparage those who want to have those. It was an agenda movie. Have them, get your clicks. Don't worry. But you live your life, I'll live mine. Take that out. I just recently had a discussion the other night at dinner with my pal Mark Ellis and our friend Chris Skaliski, who is like the head Schmodown trivia question writer. He's a great young guy out of St. Louis area. Big Star Wars guy. And we were talking about it, and I was just like, I love The Last Jedi. And Chris just very quietly just goes, well, I mean, I'm okay with it. But Luke Skywalker was my favorite character. And, that was tough. And he didn't say, not my Luke. He didn't say Ryan did it wrong or Ryan didn't understand the character. He just said, that was really tough. And Mark Ellis, who's Return of the Jedi, is his favorite movie, and I saw Last Jedi with him at the premiere. We were fortunate enough to go then, and he was like, "No, I get it. Luke's my guy too." And I think you either love or hate that movie based a little bit on Luke. There's a lot of things to maybe love or hate about it, but it's Luke. And I looked in Chris's eyes, and there was like this pain. And so when I wrote about it in my book, I start off with like writing like Luke Skywalker died today, and I wasn't ready for it. And that is the deepest Star Wars movie, and it is the second album of a band that you're like, yeah, whoa,
yeah,
what's going on here? And a little bit later on, you might figure it out. A little bit later on, maybe you never get it. Maybe it's fine. You don't listen to that album a lot. That's fair. That movie is beautiful. It looks beautiful. Every shot tells a story. We just had it on 2 nights ago. My girlfriend did. She was watching it. And I love watching her watch The Last Jedi because she's a big Star Wars fan. She doesn't get caught up in a lot of this stuff. And she was fist pumping. The Porg that we now officially do know is named Turbis, which is named by a podcast, the Tatooine Sons, who I've met them. Young kids and their dad do a podcast, and they had a screening. Told Ryan, "This is what we think the name is, Turbis," and he was like, "Make it canon." And then recently, kind of was revealed that I think that is when Turbis goes. My girlfriend's like crying with joy, and I Scrimshaw and I've talked about it, and I wrote about it a little bit of like that is. In the battle against evil, all feathers are needed, man. Yeah. That was what Ryan was saying. This Porg doesn't know what's going on, but he sees his new friend, the 7-foot hairy thing, going, "Arr!" And this Porg's like, yeah, arr! We're going to get them. We're going to fight evil. And that's what this is about. Ah, God, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And going back to Luke's death, you might not have been ready for it, but if you're a Luke fan, ask yourself this. How did you want him to go out? Yeah. With a lightsaber on top of an X-Wing crashing into the Death Star, or Kylo cutting him in half? Or did you want him to go about this thing he knew he needed to do but didn't want to do, but he kept true to himself, the guy who threw down the lightsaber to defeat evil and lead to the redemption of his father? He did that himself and redefined the hero because he is not the Obi-Wan of the movie.
Right.
He's the Obi-Wan of the galaxy. And Obi-Wan's death in New Hope as the mentor trope, his death happened so that we could go on and we could learn from it because this is your fight now. Luke was saying, you don't need a hero. You are the hero, but I will be the hero, and now you must learn from me and go on and do this yourself. And once I came to that conclusion in my head, I went, I didn't want Luke Skywalker to die. I didn't want him to die this way, but now I cannot see it any other way. And that's where the movie succeeds for me.
I think for me with the Luke, the one argument I never really understood against this movie is, people, I've heard a lot of like, but this isn't the Luke that, that we saw in Return of the Jedi. I'm like, yes, you're 100% correct. Are you the same person that you were a year ago? I think there could have been no other way for that story to have gone than to Luke to throw that lightsaber.
Yeah. Which is funny because I'll say this. I wish he dropped it on the ground. I wish he didn't toss it over his head because it read like comedy when I don't think anyone on set necessarily. There's different takes, and they went with that direction. And if you're seeing the Hux your mama joke, and if you don't like that, I'm okay with it. But if you don't like it, and the next moment is this big moment, and Luke does a woo woo, I totally get where you're like,
what is happening? Yeah,
totally. I'm not gonna ever take that away from anyone because I feel that way too. But sorry.
No, I think
I'm getting on my Last Jedi rant.
No, it's okay.
Billy.
Look, that's what we're here to talk about. I think some of the things that don't work for me about Last Jedi were some of like the anachronisms. For whatever reason, big ass door just it kind of stuck with me when all the other movies had gone out of their way, like blast it, Biggs, where are you? He didn't say damn it, Biggs, where are you? You know, although he just said damn fool.
He does that. So, no, but no, it does. No, I totally get it.
Sure.
But Force Awakens, Finn, droid please, and you got a boyfriend, cute boyfriend. Not my favorite moment. Yeah,
sure.
It works for Finn as a character, but not my favorite moment.
Yeah, no, 100% with you. I think with this movie, the reason why I walked out, I was like, I need to sit with this, was because Force Awakens is a movie of spectacle and set pieces. Last Jedi is a movie of ideas. Mm-hmm. And not only is it one idea that you have to marinate on, it's about 15 different ideas that you like. the fact that DJ is even in that movie and that the war profiteering even comes up, it's just like there's a lot to chew on.
DJ, I actually like the character a lot, but one of my favorite lines in Star Wars is DJ looking at Finn going, maybe. Because what Finn is saying is everything you believe is wrong, and everything I kind of thought I was at, and every person in the galaxy and every person in the world watching this movie might think not getting involved is an option, and not getting involved could have dire consequences. And this guy's going, maybe, I don't care. I was one of those powerful moments,
right?
And it's just throwaway. Well, oh God, the Holdo death is a lesson in a leader going, I made a decision. It might have been wrong. We've got to do this. And I'm going down with the ship. And it's this beautiful moment. And Leia staring out on Crate behind her mask. It's like 1.2 seconds. But in that story is Leia going back 40, 50 years in her life at all the death that has happened for her to get to this point and survive and keep the fight going, and how much that is weighing on her. It's a movie of ideas. It's a movie of emotions. It's a movie about growing up as much as growing old as much as is growing up. I always mess that up. Anthony Bresnikan said that from EW, now Vanity Fair. I thought that was so true. It's got father ears, which I love, but I don't like the look of the CGI. It's got this. It's got don't get caught up in that.
I think DJ is the perfect example of this movie where I had to think, because it's like, the first time I saw it, I was like, why is he in this movie? He comes in, he doesn't really do anything, and then he just goes and he's never coming back. And I was like, but that's kind of what makes this movie so interesting to me is he comes in, drops an A-bomb on our heroes and, the way that they think. And then it's like, okay, you figure it out. Like,
and leaves to death of so many people, because Poe, when he gets the information that we all think he had a right to for some reason, Holdo makes the decision to withhold it from him, which, by the way, may have been a wrong decision. I don't think Rian Johnson was saying it was right for her to hold the information from Poe. I think he's saying she made that decision, and Poe gets that information and blows it and leads to the death.
That's why I've said on Twitter.
So many people.
I've said on Twitter a couple times, and each time I tweet this, it gets retweeted probably more than anything I ever say. And I can now say I'm 100% referencing this movie. Just because you don't like a character's choice does not mean it's a plot hole. There is a very big difference.
And just, there's a lot to that. Where a lot of times in Star Wars you hear, well, everything a character says is in fact. Obi-Wan thinking that Luke is the chosen one doesn't mean he is. In fact, George Lucas will tell you he's not, but Obi-Wan still believes it in story. Yeah, no, this is a lot of that. Yeah, the plot hole thing. And look, there's some. I get. Well, why couldn't they do this? Why? Turn off your mind sometimes, and that goes back to the first conversation you had, your first comments you had about Last Jedi, and I agree with. I was fortunate enough at the time to go to the world premiere of Last Jedi. When we all walked out, we went right to the after party. And that's fans, press, and cast alike. It's crowded. I bump shoulders. It's Rian Johnson. I go, thank you, man. And he's dazed. He's like, I just put a Star Wars movie into the world. He's like, he goes, thanks, man. Next to him is Laura Dern. I go, hey, great job, Then we go, so we're all caught up. Yay. Then we go get food, and we're like, yeah. And we sat around, like 3 or 4 of us around a little snack table. And none of us were like, that was great. We all were like, and that's okay. Because we as fans need to live in that oomph a little longer to come to your true conclusions.
I'm actually making it a point, a personal thing, that I'm going to go see Rise of Skywalker on Thursday night at 7. I'm not going to rush out of the theater and sit in my parked car for a second and tweet a thought. I want to sit with it. I want to, and I think that's okay. That's okay to not have a gut reaction.
Sorry, I've promised myself recently to stop talking about this movie so passionately.
Why would you ever do that?
It hurts me sometimes. I got close friends who argue with me on this, and it hurts because I'm like, I think far be it from me to tell you what you should feel, far be it from me to tell you what you should love, but I think this movie's misunderstood more than any movie I've ever known. Other than Spice World.
And I think that's why we're still talking about it. Yeah. I can't.
I think you're very right. I think you're very right. That's why it's still in the conversation.
Yeah.
Because take away all the toxic, the bad stuff. Take that out. The actual normal day-to-day conversations of my friend looking at me and going, man, that was tough. That's what we're still talking about.
And I think that's what that movie was designed to do. Again, I've met Rian Johnson once and I chickened out on actually talking to him. But I think if I went to him and be like, man, I saw Last Jedi and I was kind of shell-shocked a little bit. I'd be like, I think he'd be like, great. That's kind of what I wanted. All right, now we're at the tough part.
Okay.
We've talked about every Star Wars movie, and now I'm going to give, and you're going to give your official, as of today.
As of today. It does change. It does change.
By the way, this is being recorded before Rise of Skywalker, which is why we're not talking about it, which is why it's not going to appear. So obviously, this by default will change. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go backwards. So I think this is a pretty easy. Number 11, The Clone Wars. It's just not good. Number 10, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Stuff I like, but it definitely it suffers a lot for me. Number 9, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. It's just there's enough in there that just kind of is missing for me that I won't rewatch it too much if I have the option for more. Number 8, this one's a little bit further down the list than I think a lot of people would put theirs, but I'm going to put Episode 6, Return of the Jedi at number 8. I do think that there are a lot of sequences that I like, but that to me is more of like the skip around movie where I'll skip to the stuff I want maybe rather than watch it. Number 7, probably a lot higher on the list than most people would put it. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's nice. One that I surprisingly find myself wanting to go back to more than I thought I would. Kind of smack dab in the middle right now. Episode 8, The Last Jedi at number 6. I think that perfectly sums up how I felt when I saw it. There's a lot 2 years later I still need to chew on. Number 5, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Wow, I think that one is creeped. Just for the rewatchability and the fun factor, that one's creeped up pretty high. Number 4, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Again, I think once you hit that opera scene, you are off and running, and it's a hard one to turn off. Number 3, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I just think it's one of the most fun adventure, just slick, fast. Everything I want in a Star Wars movie is in there. Number 2, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, which I think needs no introduction. It's pretty much at the top of most people's list. And number 1, like I said, Episode 4, A New Hope. I think it's a perfect movie.
Hard to defeat perfect. Wow, so funny. All right, so we start off very similar, and all of a sudden we go different, which is great. That's why otherwise it'd be a really weird show. Like, well, that's the same.
Really boring.
Okay, bye bye. Number 11, Clone Wars. Enough said. Look, a lot of things came out of it that I do love. Not so much that. As they say it off of space. Not gonna work here anymore. 10, Attack of the Clones. There's a lot I do love. And I even like Dexter's Diner, but yep.
I do too.
3PO's head on a droid, battle droid alone, might keep it at the bottom. Number 9, I'll go Phantom Menace. I really do love the story, really do love a lot about it. I think there's a lot of things that don't hold up for me in that. And it's funny, it's little tiny things, death by 1,000 nicks in a little bit. 8, so this might surprise you. 8, I do put Solo. At least today. It might be hard. The reason is I do get a lot of the complaints. I just personally love the hell out of it. But sometimes I watch it now and I go, man, God, can we just go back in time and make this Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Could I?
Yeah. I hear you.
7, Rogue One. So I love Rogue One, love the storytelling, love that era. But I do have to admit that a lot of it is made better for me by the supplemental material. And so therefore the film maybe goes a little lower for me. 6, we're getting down to it. Revenge of the Sith. What would hold it back from maybe being higher for me is just some of the look, the feel, the chemistry, and there's some real world reasons that Padme and Anakin don't have chemistry. It's Hayden and Natalie at a little weird point in their lives, professional lives together, personal lives together. So some of that holds it up. But I'm with you. I've always said, like the last 30 minutes of that film, and you're right. And and the Plagueis scene, the Mon Calamari ballet scene is absolutely like a top 10 Star Wars moment in a lot of ways. 5, Return of the Jedi. I think I documented a lot here why I might not like it. We didn't even talk about the Ewoks, and I think it's a plus more than a minus. But over time, it's definitely fallen down. But what keeps it so high for me on the list right now is it's where my joy from Star Wars first sprang out. 4 is Force Awakens. That rock song, that rock single, that thing, you're like, I love this chorus. I've never heard it before, but it feels like it's in my life. Love that example. Great way to describe it. It's there. Number 3 for me, New Hope. It is. I'm going to sit there and say, Billy, you're probably right. Perfect film. There was a lot of points in my Star Wars fandom where if I had to choose to put in a movie and I had the original trilogy, like I may have gone a couple years without watching New Hope. I can't tell you why. I cannot tell you why.
The first half hour takes its sweet time.
Yeah. I can't tell you why. It just might have been. It's why as a Beatles fan I go to Abbey Road before I go to something from '62 or '63. It's just like, oh yeah, it's good. The hairstyles are kind of their time, but love that film. And in a weird way, it's underrated.
Yeah,
if that makes sense for something we're considering a perfect movie, number 1 on your list. 2, you've just heard me turn this show into a 3-hour marathon by talking about The Last Jedi. It is my second favorite Star Wars film. I don't just say that to troll people. I say it because it moves me. It challenges me. It still does. I still discover things about it. Even things that I thought I didn't like or thought is not my favorite, I find things in it. And I really do love that film. I really, really do. And number 1 will be for me The Empire Strikes Back. That might be my perfect in a different way. New Hope is perfect in a very big way.
Right.
Empire might be for me maybe the perfect Star Wars film. Maybe the perfect Star Wars film for me. Where New Hope might be just more of a perfect film for the world and the history of the film.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think culturally, Empire Strikes Back has skyrocketed to most people.
And that's why I say New Hope's a little underrated, because after a while, it's like Empire's the cool thing. Like, oh, you appreciate Empire now, right? More than you did as a kid. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, cool. Where in New Hope,
you're an adult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't like kids things anymore, right? Like those dumb Ewoks. Which is why I love Mark Ellis. Is like, nope, Return of the Jedi is the best one because we won. I think that's true.
Well, there you have it. There's definitely an expiration date on it, but there is our somewhat definitive ranking of the Star Wars movies. Ken Napzok, you talk hours and hours and hours and hours every week about Star Wars. So to take time out to talk on this show, I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, pleasure. I gotta tell you, man. I just love talking Star Wars with you, Billy. We have a good chemistry on about it, and I think I love your insight. I love the things that you make me think about that I don't, I love. And you're like, well, here's why. And I'm like, okay, that seems smart. And hot take, Billy Biz. I think there's more love in that heart than hot takes. The idea of hot takes would tell someone about
and his heart grew 3 sizes. How about this? Let's make a pact at some point in the next month or two. We come back and even if it's just a special. We just talk. We talk the Rise of Skywalker just to put a little bow on it.
Let's put a bow on it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys went out and enjoyed Rise of Skywalker. I don't know when you're listening to this, but if it's May, happy May Day. But if you're listening to it when it comes out, happy holidays to everyone. I will see you guys real soon.